Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Football Manager 2018, the beta with Zebu Nation. And we are back again with FC Dallas, back again in MLS, and back again for another video. Now, I've been looking back at some of my last few videos, and I've noticed that I've been a little meandering, just kind of talking about whatever comes to mind. So I decided I would add a little bit of structure to these videos, and I'm going to split the videos up into 3 parts and hopefully be a little bit more focused on what I'm talking about. So the first part of this video I'm calling the MLS Corner, and this is where we talk about the various issues and weird little things that make MLS special and things that you should basically be aware of and understand if you're going to play in MLS. So for this edition of MLS Corner, we're going to answer a question, and it's a question that I heard a lot of YouTubers ask in 2017 when they were trying to play MLS for the first time. And the question they asked was, how do you bring in players during the season for MLS? Now, preseason, it's kind of easy. It's kind of spelled out for you, right? You got the transfer window that's typically open. You've got all the drafts and things like that. You can bring in lots of players during the preseason. But how about mid-season and beyond? How do you bring players in? I saw several YouTubers just get stuck with a roster full of injured players and, academy players, and just, they had nothing going on their rosters, and they couldn't figure out how to bring players in. So I'm going to try to help you out, try to help you navigate bringing in players to MLS. All right, so the first thing you got to understand is this concept of the summer transfer window. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the summer transfer window because a lot of leagues around the world have summer transfer windows. With MLS, they look at it with a very special philosophy. And the philosophy is this: you take a look at your team at mid-season, because that's when the summer transfer window happens for MLS teams. It happens in July and August, which is pretty much mid-season. And so they take that time to evaluate their team and say, where are we in the league? Are we just outside of a playoff position? Are we at the bottom of the league maybe and we need a spark? Do we have a lot of young players who aren't playing well? Or, whatever it is, you analyze your team and say, do I need to make a big impact? Do I need to make a big signing for my club? And if the answer is yes, then you can use the summer transfer window to go out and basically do what you would do in other leagues. You would spend your transfer budget on bringing in a big player from Europe. And the reason you do this in the summer is because you've got actually the same transfer window as the teams in Europe. Whereas in the early season, in the winter, your transfer window is different than most of the other big leagues around the world. So that's why what I would suggest is that when you come into a new season with MLS, you make a plan. You have a plan for your roster, and you leave a few players or a few slots on your roster free. Okay? Especially your international slots. Have 2 or 3 international slots available and 1 or 2 of your designated player slots. Leave them empty. Don't panic buy during the winter. You maybe you've got a designated player slot open and you're like, well, there's this guy who's kind of okay. I'm not really in love with him, but I'll bring him in just to fill in a slot. Don't do that. What I would suggest is at the beginning of the season, play your young players, play your American players, play the guys that you got in the super draft or guys from your academy who are showing promise. Bring those guys up and play them early season. And if your team can win with those guys, it's fine. Keep it going. But if they can't win with those young players, then you can use the summer transfer window to bring in some veterans, bring in some players from Europe, and boost your squad that way. So that's the summer transfer window. You're going to get offers. These teams in Europe, they're going to send you emails and say, hey, I got this guy available, I got that guy available for $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever it is. They're going to be looking to offload their players during the summer. They're going to be looking to, frankly, they're going to be looking to get rid of some of their older veterans, 30-year-old and up that they no longer want. They want to get those guys off the books, right? And send them to America. And that's fine. If your team needs that boost of a veteran, of a very, frankly, a player who's maybe not quite as good to be in the Premier League, but he's more than adequate, probably a star player in MLS. You can go out and get those guys with your transfer budget. That's fine. Maybe they're also looking to get rid of some of their disgruntled guys. Whatever the reason is, you can find those guys available during the summer, not at the beginning of the season in the winter or spring, however you want to call it. The next way you bring guys in is your scouts. You have to use your scouts, and specifically, you have to use your scouts on free transfers. You have to look at those unemployed players. Just scout them, especially in America. Look for the unemployed players. Look for the unemployed players in Europe and Mexico and all the hot spots. Because in MLS, you don't often have the transfer budget to bring in the big guys. So you want to find unemployed guys, people who are available on a free transfer and who will fit within your salary windows, right? Players who will be available for less than $400,000. That's really the kind of guys in terms of salary is what I'm talking about. Salary of, at the upper end, it has to be less than $500,000. But you definitely want it to be less than 400,000, 300,000, 200,000, 150,000 around there is probably a good number. Look for those kind of guys. Now, they aren't going to be the greatest guys in the world, obviously. So you're going to have to look at where they fit in your team and what skills they have to specifically fit the needs of your team. You have to look for specialists, guys who can cross the ball, guys who can tackle, guys who can defend. Right? Whatever your specific need is, target those guys, bring them in on the free transfer, and that's going to require your scouts. Now, the other thing that's maybe hidden if you're not used to American sports, and again, I hate bringing this back to American sports, but it quite often comes down to, are you familiar with this concept or not? And there's a concept in American sports called the waivers. And in early season, we talked about the waiver draft. And the waiver draft is slightly different because in the waiver draft happens at the beginning of the season when there's a roster cut or roster deadline. And they say you have to have a deadline here. And so the teams naturally have to cut players during that roster deadline. And so all those players go into a draft and you get an email and it's very clear. This is a draft, this is how you pick up players. But in mid-season, you also get emails. It'll say, Sporting Kansas City has cut this guy. He's now on waivers. You have 2 days to decide if you want to pick this guy up. And there's no button that says draft this guy. There's no email that says now is the time for a waiver draft because there is no waiver draft. This is in American sports is what's known as the waiver wire. It's just when a player gets cut, you get informed, and you've got 48 hours to decide if you want to pick this guy up on what is essentially a free transfer. So what you have to do when you get that email that says this guy has been cut by Orlando or cut by Los Angeles or whatever, you go on that guy, you click on him, and you just see if you want him. Is this a guy you need, you want? Does his contract fit within your structure? That's obviously number one because you're going to be picking up his contract as it is. You're not going to be signing him to a new contract. It's going to be, as is. So if his contract fits, if he's a guy you want, you can go up to the transfer button and you can select claim this guy off waivers. And you'll go into a pool of teams. And the way the waiver works, the way it works in every American sports league, is that the team with the lowest record, the worst record, who claims him off of waivers gets him for free. So if you go over here to the league table. Where's the league table competitions? You know, after 48 hours, they say, well, did Seattle claim this guy off waivers? No. Minnesota? No. San Jose? No. FC Dallas? Okay. FC Dallas, you're next in line. You get him because you're the first one to have claimed him, and you've got the lowest record to have claimed him. That's how the waiver wire works. Now, I talk about this at mid-season because this quite often happens during the summer transfer window. When players are looking to sign players from overseas, and suddenly they say, well, I want to sign this guy, but he'll put me over the salary cap, so let me cut one of my other players to make room. That doesn't necessarily happen in other leagues because you can't just cut players in other leagues. And so that's something you might want to think about as well if you want to get rid of some players. There will be a window of opportunity open during the summer transfer window to cut players without having to pay for their salaries because they'll go on waivers and they can get picked up by another team. So watch for that summer transfer window, be able to cut players and pick up players via the waiver wire. And then the final way to pick up players, of course, are through trades, the infamous MLS trading system. Now, this season it looks a little better. It looks like the AI is a little bit more willing to trade, but I think the key is still what it was in FM17. And the key is you have to look at the players who are transfer listed within the MLS. Because if they're not transfer listed in MLS, it's not very likely that a team is going to want to trade that player to you for a couple of reasons. First of all, because the rosters are so heavily managed in MLS, you don't have a lot of room to just get rid of a guy and trade a guy away and bring another guy in. Like, you have to make plans for these rosters, and you have to say, well, I've only got, this number of designated players and this number of foreign players and all that stuff, and you got to make all that stuff match up, and it's just hard to do in a trade. So if the team isn't already willing to part ways with the guy, it's very difficult for you to be able to offer him enough resources to make that worthwhile. Now, the one way to make it worthwhile is with allocation funds. If there's a guy you want to trade for and they're not willing to trade, try throwing on a bunch of allocation money. Especially if you've got a couple of $100,000 worth, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, which is the limit. You can only spend the maximum you can trade for is $500,000 in allocation money. But if you got that kind of allocation money, not transfer money, because that doesn't work. It doesn't count here. It's got to be allocation funds. You can try tacking on some allocation funds and see if they'll trade for that. Usually, a draft pick and allocation funds is how you trade for a guy in MLS. I think the reason for that is that Sports Interactive hasn't quite gotten around to figuring out that AI, the trading AI. Like when I play NBA 2K, they've got the similar complex salary cap in the NBA. But in NBA 2K, what the computer does is they'll look at the salary cap implications of any trade and say, you're trying to trade me a guy who's got a salary cap number of $10 million bucks, and I've only got $5 million bucks left on the cap. I can't make that trade. And they'll tell you that. They'll say, I don't have the cap room. I can't make that trade. This game doesn't quite do that. So you get rejected and you don't know why. And so I think that's something they need to work on, but FM18 seems a little better than that. It seems a little better than FM17. So maybe some of those trades will be able to start taking place where you can trade player for player. But for right now, I would suggest to be safe, trade for draft picks and trade for allocation money. And now I'll show you what I've done this mid-season, how I've managed to transfer and bring in some players with FC Dallas, because FC Dallas, we don't have a lot of roster flexibility right now. We've got all of our designated players are accounted for. Most of our foreign players were accounted for. So I had to make a lot of small, nuanced roster moves in order to make things happen during this off season. So let's take a look at our transfer history. And first of all, Most of this stuff here on the left-hand side in terms of bringing players in happened early in the season. February, March, the opening transfer window. But we had one thing happen during the summer transfer window, and that was bringing in Andres Feigl. Now, if you watch my last video, you saw the impact that this guy had. He was a free transfer guy, he was out there, lost his job in Germany. My scouts went out, found him. I brought him in on a free transfer during that summer transfer window. And, he paid dividends. You saw in that last video, he had a goal and assist in the U.S. Cup semifinals. So, he was an impact player for us, even though if you look at him here, that's a little bug they got. But if you look at him here, he's not the greatest player in the world. His physicals aren't that great. He's valued at 1.2 million, which is, pretty average for an MLS player. But he's got what I needed. He was a left winger. He could play on the left-hand side. He could play a lot of different positions down the left-hand side of the field, which is where I was weak. He had good crossing, dribbling, passing, the skills that I needed for a left winger, and, he was good enough. But the key to why I brought this guy in was because he was a bargain, right? Zero money transfer, only $150,000 salary is all he was asking for. And I had an international player slot available. So he fit into my roster. And this is the key when you're out looking for players for MLS. You have to be a bargain hunter, a bargain shopper. Look for these guys who are available out there for free and who fit a need with your team. Then the other thing I did is I made some roster moves to get rid of some guys. I put a couple of guys out on loan to my affiliates. Number one, Ja'Cory Hayes here, just to sort of make room on the roster and also to get him some more playing time because he was a young guy, a young American player, is not getting much playing time right now. So send him out on loan, let him get some playing time, and make room on the roster for somebody else. And then there's Lawrence Ullum. He was asking to leave. He wanted to go. So I got rid of him, sent him to Cincinnati for $67,000. Not a lot of money, but again, made room on the roster. Got rid of his salary cap number because I sold him off, and that gets him off your books. And he was another international player, so I got rid of another international slot. That's an important thing to look at. But where I made the big moves this season wasn't in the transfer market, it was in the trade market. And as you can see here, the first one is an interesting looking trade. You say FC Dallas traded nothing to Orlando City and got Jose Aja. That sounds weird. How did you trade nothing for a guy? Well, this is actually how I picked up a guy on waivers. If you look at Jose here, you look at his history. FC Dallas waivers. So this is what a waiver looks like. This is what happens when you just claim a guy off of waivers. You get him for nothing from Orlando. They had waived him, and he's a pretty good player. This guy is a rock solid central defender for MLS anyway. Good height, good strength, pace, excellent jumping reach at 16, heading at 15, marking, tackling, positioning, all that stuff. Rock solid 3-star guy. 24 years old, but he is an international player, so I had to have that international slot available, which I did. And $215,000 salary, which is kind of on the high end. It's not outrageous or anything. It's not on the high end, but it's, a little bit over the mid-level range. So I had to have the salary cap room available for this guy, which I did, and that's why I claimed this guy off of waivers, because he's an excellent player for my needs. I was looking to strengthen the central defense and that rotation. He's not going to be a starter for us because we've got Hedges and Zimmerman, but in terms of adding depth to the team, this guy was my number one choice this offseason. Excellent player. Then after after the summer transfer window, I was looking to strengthen the team even more because I had a lot of roster slots available. I only had 24 out of 30 guys on my roster because I had sent so many young players out on loan. So near the final roster deadline, I was looking to strengthen the team. So with about 10 days left, I went out and I looked at what MLS players were currently transfer listed, and I looked at all of them and I targeted 4 players. I saw these 4 guys and I said they can fit into my team because they're versatile. They've got reasonable contracts. They've got short-term contracts, and the other teams were looking to get rid of them. They were looking to trade them off. And the key to them having short-term contracts, why that was important, is because this is just stopgap measure. These guys are just on the roster for this season to provide depth for this season going into the end of the season and the playoffs, and that's it. I don't need them for next year. I don't need them for the future. They're older players. They've got not a lot of time left, and so I was looking for short-term contracts, and all of these guys had contracts that run out at the end of the season. So what I did, like I mentioned, with 10 days left before the final rosters were set in stone, because there's a point in MLS near the end of the season where they say, past this point, no more players can be added or subtracted from your roster. So I went to each of these teams and each of these players, and I did a trade inquiry and said, what do you want for these guys? And these teams each came back with very, very reasonable demands. Atlanta for Zach Lloyd, who's a very dependable veteran guy, 30 years old. Not the greatest player you've ever seen, but he's very, very capable. He's got a lot of mental attributes that are pretty good. His physicals are holding up at 30 years old. But again, I'm not looking to make a long-term commitment to this guy. I just need depth for this season. He can play left back or right back or central defense. So he's exactly the kind of guy I was looking for. Only $85,000 salary. Perfect. Fits under the salary cap. So they were asking for a 4th round pick and $50,000 in targeted allocation money. It's fine. That's fine. I made that, no problem. Then I went after Leonardo, another central defender, just another guy to bolster that central defense. Because the worst thing in the world is to have your central defenders get injured or suspended or whatever and have nobody to put in that slot. So Leonardo was available. $150,000, a little expensive, but his contract runs out at the end of the year. No problem. This guy's a very solid central defender at 29 years old. A little bit over the hill, but still physically holding up well. Very good. And for this guy, they kind of wanted to get rid of Leonardo, so they were sweetening the pot with 60,000 allocation dollars of their own, which, balanced out what I had to pay to Atlanta. So I broke even there, no problem. But they wanted 2 draft picks, a 3rd and 4th round. And, Nick Belser from Real Salt Lake, just a midfield guy, can play central midfield or defensive midfielder. Just another backup guy. They wanted a 3rd round pick from Real Salt Lake. And then a key guy that I really wanted was Dilly Duca from New York City, or not New York City, from New York Red Bull. Now, not only does he have the best name, Dilly Duca, the old double D, the Duke, but this guy can play all over the field. He can play any position in the midfield. You look at that, left, right, central, all over the place. He could play defensive midfielder if he was feeling cheeky. He could play striker if you were desperately in need of a striker. 175,000, a little bit high. I had to spend some of my allocation money to get under the cap to sign this guy. So that's another thing, again, just squeezing every dollar out of the salary cap I could. Spent my final bits of allocation money to bring in Dilly Duca. And you might notice that I gave away a lot of draft picks. Draft picks for next couple of seasons. I gave away 2 draft picks from 2018. Well, actually 3 draft picks from 2018. A 4th round and 2 3rd rounds from 2018, and then 2 draft picks from 2019. But these are all third and fourth round draft picks. And I'm going to tell you a secret about MLS Super Draft, which is third and fourth round draft picks are usually not MLS caliber players. You can find them on occasion. A guy will slip down and you'll be able to find MLS caliber players in the third and fourth round, or it'll be um, a particularly good draft, a particularly deep and talented draft, and you can get good players in the third and fourth round. But for most of your MLS super drafts, you're going to want to stockpile first and second round draft picks because that's where the good players are at. So you can see here the trades that I made earlier in the season, I picked up another first round and 2 more second round draft picks. Okay, so that gives me the flexibility to be able to trade away these late round draft picks, which are guys that I probably will never use, guys that at best will be backup players. It's okay, spend those resources to get some depth for this season. It's fine. Anything you can do to get rid of your third and fourth round draft picks and get some value out of them, I suggest you do it. All right. So there we go. We spent enough time on MLS Corner. I hope you got a little bit of an idea on how to bring in players, the sort of sneaky tricks you got to use, the planning and manipulating of your roster you've got to do to bring players into MLS during the mid-season. It's not the easiest thing in the world, especially if you're not used to American sports and how things are done in American sports. But it is possible. It is doable. And I think in FM 18, it might even be a little bit easier than it was in 17 or 16. So, all right. We're done with that. We're done with MLS Corner. We're going to move on to the narrative portion where we're going to talk about our season, where we're at, how we're doing, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to keep this brief because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Right now, there's one game left in the regular season with FC Dallas. We've got 14 wins, 6 draws for a total of 48 points, which places us in third place in the Western Conference. And as you can see here, that puts us in the blue, which is the wild card playoffs. And what the wild card playoffs are, it's a one-game playoff that will get you into the MLS Cup playoffs proper. Basically, it throws you directly into the quarterfinals against the top 2 teams that finished in your conference. So, the 2 winners of the 2 wildcard games will play against the top 2 teams in that conference. That's how it works. So that's what we're playing for here. Right now, we got no chance of catching Sporting Kansas City. They're 9 points up on us with 1 game to go. Not going to happen. But on the flip side of that, we're 3 points ahead of San Jose and Houston, and we've got the tiebreakers on those guys. Well, actually, San Jose could possibly catch us and possibly pass us through a series of tiebreakers. I don't want to go into those just yet, but just to say that MLS tiebreaker, the number 1 tiebreaker is wins as opposed to goal differential. And then it goes down from there. So with all these sort of things going on, we can't really control where we finish. The only thing I'm worried about is that we are going to make the playoffs because LA Galaxy, they can't overtake us. They can overtake some other people, but LA Galaxy or Minnesota, who are out of the playoffs right now, they can't overtake us, so we are in the playoffs. Win or lose this game, we're in. The only question is what position we finish and who we play. And the only thing I'm concerned about is that I don't want to play Houston. Houston is our rival. We already beat them in the Texas Derby this year, and they're looking for revenge. You know, we played them earlier in the season, and they were mad, boy. They were fighting mad. They played us really hard, and we'll see in a minute. They even whipped our butt one time this season, pretty badly. So we don't want to play our rival in the playoff, but I don't think there's anything I can do this final game that would make it so we don't have to play them. You know, we could lose on purpose or put out, a weak team, but I don't think that'll make a difference in terms of where we finish. If we win, there's too many variables for me to worry about winning or losing this last game and how that's going to make us finish. So basically, I have to look forward in the schedule and look at this playoff schedule and say, what do we got going on here? Well, what we got going on here is we got a wild card game in 3 days. Okay, and we're playing LA Galaxy, final game of the season, and they're fighting for a playoff spot. So they're going to come after us. They're going to want to try to get that final playoff spot, overtake Sporting Kansas City, right? Sporting Kansas City? Sporting Kansas City? No, Real Salt Lake. They want to overtake Real Salt Lake. I get those two confused all the time. If they can overtake Real Salt Lake, they'll make that 4th position, and we might have to come back and play LA Galaxy again in 3 days in the wild card round. That happens all the time in U.S. sports that have these wild card rounds. Is you play a game against a team on the final game of the season, and then you got to turn right around and play them again. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to play a totally weak team. I'm going to play all my reserves against LA Galaxy. If we beat them, fine. If we don't beat them, we'll have a completely fresh and rested team ready to make a playoff run. Because if you look at recent events in our schedule, we're in fine form right now. We are undefeated since last month. Since September, we haven't lost a game. Now, at the end of August, we had a little bit of a problem. We had some injuries, we had some fatigue, and we lost some games. We got, like I mentioned, we got whooped up on by Houston, 5-2. They came in and they said before the match, we're going to try to humiliate these guys, and that's exactly what they did. And then, we had a couple of decent games after that. But then we played Atlanta United with a fully rotated squad because we were getting ready for the U.S. Cup finale, and Atlanta United stomped us 4-0. They could have named their score, and apparently they just wanted to score 4 because that's all they scored. Whooped up on us. So our fully rotated side is not the strongest team in the world, but playing that fully rotated side put us in position to play a heck of a game against the Red Bulls and win the U.S. Cup for the 2nd time in a row. Last season with the Oscar Pareja, FC Dallas won the U.S. Cup, and it was a big deal for everybody in Dallas. Now we've come back, won it a 2nd season in a row. That got us, another bid to the Champions League. So not only are we going to play in the Champions League next year, we're going to be playing in the Champions League the year after that as well. So, Champions League run is really set up for us now at FC Dallas, and we can start building our program towards playing in that Champions League. But what that did, winning that cup, it really revitalized the squad, and everybody got on board, everybody was feeling good, and we went on a huge run here, undefeated in our last 6 games, 4 wins, 2 draws. So we're in fine form going into the playoffs, and I want to make sure that we don't get derailed by injuries or anything like that. So we look at the medical center. Everything is hunky-dory in the medical center. Got a little bit of problem here with Matt Hedges. He sort of strained himself. He's a little older. He was just running around the pitch, pulled a hamstring. So we're going to rest him. We're going to rest everybody for the wild card round. So let's get to our match versus the LA Galaxy with all these lovely rotated players. And here we are. Here's the team. We got Seitz in goal. He's been overtaken by Gonzalez this season. That's natural. An older goalkeeper giving way to a younger goalkeeper. It happens. And this is just natural progression for Gonzalez. Then we've got, a lot of those players you just saw in our transfer window here. Lloyd, Leonardo are playing in defense. We got Figueroa and one of our young academy players, Sergio Rodriguez, who hasn't played much this season, but he's going to get a start at left back for us. One of our free agent signees, Vidal, is going to be at defensive midfielder. Belser, another one of our late season trade acquisitions. Smith, an academy player. Tommy Thompson, a free agent. Akindele, one of our only regular players to be playing. And then Brian Reynolds is going to be our striker. Probably our most talented or our academy player with the most potential. Only 16 years old. But he's got pretty good physicals, very good mentals for a 16-year-old, and decent technicals. He's got finishing where it counts. 12 first touch, 12 finishing, 12 penalty taking, so he can at least hopefully score some goals for us as a young academy player. But this is not an MLS quality club. This is a second or third division caliber club. So it's going to be a rough game against Los Angeles, but we're going to do what we can. We're going to play structured, we're going to play counterattack, and hopefully we can take advantage of some of LA's weaknesses. LA, they like to possess the ball, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they've got some good advanced players. Boateng, Dos Santos, and Zardes are 3 talented players, so we got to watch out for them. But defensively, they're not very good. Goalkeeping, they're not terrific. So if we can just catch them on the counterattack and win a couple of loose balls. Come on, guys. Show me what you can do to keep our run going. Okay, that's fine. Let's end the pep talk. Enter the tunnel. So if we can just catch them on the counterattack, I think we'll be pretty good. This could be the last time we see Zach Lloyd and Jesse Gonzalez. Why Jesse Gonzalez? Oh, we have not signed Jesse Gonzalez. We're going to have to take care of that real quick. Oh, no, we got a contract offer into Jesse. That's fine. Yeah, we deferred a lot of our contracts to the end of the season just so we don't mess up our salary cap. All right. I don't want to talk about this. I don't think it'll be the time or place for that. Whatever. How much of a boost is Romain Alessandrini's absence? I hate Alessandrini. I'm going to be straight up with you. Alessandrini is a thorn in my side. And any team would be lesser without him. Whatever. So here we are, final home game of the season. A much more realistic looking Toyota. It's not Toyota Park. Toyota Park is Chicago. I think this is Toyota Stadium. Anyway, we got some renovations going on in one of the corners. Looks like we're adding some seats. Oh, there's Vidal with a nice rough tackle on Giovanni. Looks like they've got some injuries in their starting lineup, which I don't know why the computer keeps doing that. They keep playing these injured guys, playing them into the dirt. But anyway, I don't think we're going to get a ton of great highlights this game. It's going to be all about whether or not LA can break down our defense with some long balls here. Like this to Boateng. Boateng is tremendously fast. He's not the most technically talented dude in the world. But he is extremely speedy. So hopefully he gets caught on all those offsides just like he got there. Here's Lloyd now with a free kick down the wing to Thompson. Thompson is dispossessed, but Belser recovers, tries to get it forward to Akindele. No good. And here is Giovanni busting through our ramshackle defense. Rodriguez, the youngster, tackles the all-star. How about that? And now here we are on the counterattack. Thompson stalls and no highlight. No highlight. All right. Here we are, just 8 minutes in. Juan Pablo gets it to Dos Santos. Jones takes the shot to, not a really good shot, actually, but he does get a corner out of it. On the near side, Dos Santos is going to send it in. So as long as this team can just kind of hold their own against these guys, play defense, not score own goals against themselves, like that was nearly, yeah, it should be good. So, all this talking, my mouth is a little parched, so I'm going to crack open a nice Boylan's Birch Beer Soda. This episode of FM 18 brought to you by Boylan's Bottling Company. Not actually. No, I'm not sponsored. But I do like this soda. I drink it quite a bit. Made with real sugar, none of that high fructose corn syrup business. Birch beer is kind of like root beer, but just not quite as rooty. A little more beery. And it's not alcoholic, of course. It's just it's a soda, not a beer. I don't know why they call them beers. Is it how it's brewed? Is it brewed like a beer, but just not? No, it can't be brewed because that would bring out the alcohol. So I think they just call it a beer because it's sort of beer colored. I have no idea. But anyway, back to our game here. This should be a defensive affair because Los Angeles isn't particularly good at scoring goals, and we don't really have any of our goal scorers out on the field right now. You know, we got Akindele playing a wide target man. We got plays like this happening. We got rookie Reynolds trying to chase a ball down in the deep corner. That's no good. There's Boateng using his speed to get the ball. They've always got Dos Santos. He's better, 10 times better than any player we got out on the field right now. So if Dos Santos breaks through, Zardes as well. Zardes is he's a very capable offensive player. Boateng even is pretty good. It was an interesting move by Seitz to just sort of push the ball out of bounds, but whatever. You know, their front three players outclass us by far, so it's just a matter of playing defense. Leonardo, get them old bones rolling downfield. Just Thompson, our right winger, just gets crunched. Finoli, I'm not familiar with that guy. All right, here's Figueroa with the throw into Vidal. Oh, Reynolds almost had a shot at a goal right there. That was good defense. And now here's Giovanni on the run. Let's close down on that guy. If they keep giving the ball to Boateng, of the three, I'd rather give it to Boateng. Because he'll do stuff like that. Because he's not really smart. I've had Boateng on my team before. And he's got all the physical talent in the world. All the speed and athleticism that you would want. It's just, he doesn't make very good decisions. And he's not incredibly technical either. So that's a bad combination for a young player trying to break into the league. And there's a lot of people who've looked at Boateng for a couple of seasons and said, why isn't this guy playing more, in MLS? Because they look at his physical abilities and say this guy should be playing more. But I think, mentally and technically, he just doesn't have it. So here we are rolling along. 38 minutes down in the first half already. Los Angeles with a throw-in on the near side, nearly stolen by Smith. Dos Santos has it, takes a wild shot over the goal. That's fine. As long as Dos Santos isn't in form, we got a chance at winning this game. We need to get a lucky goal, maybe off a set piece. If you saw my last video, you saw that I actually set up my corners. So if we could get a nice goal from one of our corner set pieces, that would be good. Reynolds to Thompson, that's not going to score, but that might get us one of their corner kicks. There's the new expansion there. I believe this is construction. I don't think this is normally in the stadium. It's got these scaffolds on it. So I think we're building some new stands here in the corner. Figueroa gets ahead on the ball, but has to knock it all the way back to Vidal. There's Smith, another one of our young academy players. He's got a lot of potential, too. He's another one of our really, really talented young academy players. And as I mentioned in one of my very first videos, FC Dallas does have one of the best academy programs in MLS. So the fact that I've got so many academy players playing on my team right now shouldn't be all that surprising. Even though, the real FC Dallas doesn't do it as much as I do. They still put players in there. Paxton Pomykal is getting, some playing time this season. Not as much as I'm giving him, but, real life coaches and managers, they've got actual, jobs to worry about, whereas I'm just a football manager. And I can take risks that maybe they can't. But still, they've got the academy players to give it a try. And to try out what I was talking about earlier in terms of my plans. Plans for the roster is to play those young players early in the season, get them experience, see if they grow, and if not, go out and get free agents, which is what we did. Okay, so here's halftime. If we get a draw out of this, this is fine. You're performing well. Keep it up. Do I want to make any changes? No. We're just going to let this team roll off on the counterattack. It's not... He whiffed on the kickoff, but that's fine, I guess. Belser drops it to Leonardo, who just fires it downfield to no one in particular. Here's Los Angeles coming on the counterattack. Leonardo is playing well back there on the back line. He seems to be all over the place. What's his rating? Only 6.7. Look at our ratings up and down the board. They're pretty average. Reynolds, our young 16-year-old striker, not doing too hot. But that's kind of to be expected. You know, a 16-year-old going up against a bunch of grown men. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, especially at striker. But hey, he might get an opportunity here. He might get a chance. A little pressure on the ball there. That's interesting. Los Angeles does have some pretty good decision makers. Or so their scouting report said. So I decided not to put a lot of pressure on him, but you know, maybe I should put some more pressure on him if they turn the ball over like that. Belser is going backwards. You know, our midfield is not cracking right now, but we can get it down to Akindele as the target man. He should be our best player on the pitch. He gets it to Reynolds in the box. Reynolds takes a shot. He got a shot on goal, so that's good. I mean, it wasn't really on goal. Is that technically on goal? He took a shot. Anyway. Dos Santos with the free kick. Figueroa just sort of boots it. There's nobody in the middle there for LA. I don't know if they've got a set play. It doesn't look particularly like they've got a set play. I think they're going off the default corner, which is nothing. So I don't know that we have to worry too much about getting scored on from corners. We just got to watch out for set pieces and, of course, general play, since they've got the talent advantage on us right now. Pablo sends it deep. Sates almost has a miscommunication there with his defense. Gotta communicate there, buddy. All right, they finally substituted out their injured guy, one of their injured guys. They still got Zardes on the field. That's pretty dumb considering they're trying to get in the wild. Well, they're trying to get into the wild card, so they got to play all their best players. There's Vidal. Akindele now on the run. Can we get a counterattack out of this? Akindele. We got several players moving forward. The youngster Reynolds gets it. He's onside. He takes a terrible shot. But the fact that we didn't go offside is just a miracle. As I mentioned before, this game is nothing but offside after offside. It seems to have gotten a little bit better since the update, but that could just be my wishful thinking. Let's see, how are we doing here? 67 minutes down. Got to throw in on the near side. There's Lloyd, the veteran, gets it to Reynolds. Tries a cross-ish. Cross/shot. Rowe taps it out of bounds for a corner. Now let's see if we can get that goal. See if we can get that lucky goal. Akindele sends it in. There's Leonardo heading. There's our play. That's our set play. He's supposed to send that short post to the central defender who's waiting there at short post, but he's obviously not as accurate as some other people, so sometimes the ball drifts towards the penalty spot, and that's where I've got the striker heading towards. So there's another free kick. Again, they're aiming for Reynolds. I hope he's not set at target man. No, he's advanced forward. They should be aiming for Akindele, but they seem to be targeting Reynolds. I guess that's not the worst thing in the world, but ooh, there's a steal. Belser getting aggressive, gets fouled. Not the most exciting game you've ever seen, but there's Rodriguez to Vidal with a header that goes wide. And is that a corner? That is a corner. Good turnout for the final game in Toyota Stadium. I'm happy about that. The support has been very good here in FM18. In FM17, for whatever reason, FC Dallas had terrible fan support. They never filled up their stadium. Like even after I was winning championships and going to Champions Leagues and all kinds of stuff, they would never fill up the stadium. So hopefully this season, FC Dallas will have a little bit more fan support. There's a header out of touch there by Los Angeles, so it's just going to be another goal kick. These highlights are just not even what you would call highlights. They're just sort of, I don't know, plays that happen in the game. It's just sort of, we got nothing better to show you, so we're going to show you this random play of this random guy. Okay, that was a good highlight. Boateng taking a shot going off the crossbar. Reynolds getting fouled. Uh-oh. There's some injuries happening here, and Reynolds injured. So we're going to bring in our other academy striker. Right, maybe. Nope. Okay. That was not a real injury. That's just sort of a... No, he's really injured. He's actually injured. Potential knee injury. Let's get him out of there. Bring in Alex Wright. He's more of a target man, so we're going to put him at target man. And he's my academy player who's got the finishing. He's only 5'10". He's got 15 finishing, 14 free kick taking. So this is a guy who can score goals for us, but it's going to take him a few years. He's going to have to get bigger and stronger to be that kind of goal-scoring target man. But right now, he's got the building blocks in place, so we shall see what he can do. Let's get him out of there. Figueroa to Vidal. On the attack here with Smith. Gets it to Belser. Oh, what a back pass from Belser to Reynolds. Oh, he almost scored. The young academy player with the knee injury almost scored, but now he's out of there. Get out of there. No need to risk your future just for one late season, mostly meaningless game. See if Thompson to right gets dispossessed, and here's LA on the counterattack. Giovanni, we're marking him tightly. We got all four of our defenders back and our defensive midfielder. There's Thompson swooping in. Our winger swooping back to make the defensive play. 80 minutes down. If we get out of this with a draw, I'm more than happy with that. It's just such a lackluster game. I hate this to be the highlight that you see. So I'm going to come back. Oh, there's right offside. Offside, of course. I'm going to come back and show some of these playoff games just so we can, show some excitement. See what the playoffs are all about. See the intensity, the pageantry, all that stuff. There's no pageantry. I mean, there might be some improved pageantry. I'd like to see that. Like what would John Madding say? We need some bunting out there. We need some fireworks. Some pom-poms. I don't know. Maybe see the crowd get dressed up or be a little louder, or who knows. Just something. They said they were working on the stadium experience, and maybe the stadium experience is just empty picnic tables. I'd like to see some actual people out on those picnic tables one of these games. Offside? Offside. Of course. Even a player like Giovanni, one of the best players in the league, a Mexican international player, plays for their national team. You tell me that guy is going to be offsides all the time? Okay, my 16-year-old academy player, that guy can be offside all day long if he wants to. But, Dos Santos... Oh, what is this? Offside? Offside. Guy like Dos Santos should not be going offside. He's got the skills, he's got the experience, he's got the mental attributes to be able to stay onside. This is why I'm thinking it's some tweaking is necessary, and hopefully they'll take care of it. They took care of it last year after the beta, and hopefully they take care of it again this season. They tried to get it out wide to Akindele, which is where they should be getting the ball, but they are not. Rodriguez almost gets the steal. 87 minutes down. We are mercifully coming to an end to this game. Let's hope the LA doesn't steal it from us. Boateng gets his pass deflected, but Villarreal is there. Back out to Boateng. Now, that said he was offside. He didn't look offside to me. It looked like there were some defenders who were back there futzing around. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not the linesman. I should look at the replay. Here's a throw in by Figueroa on the far side for FC Dallas. Vidal almost scores on a deflection. Rowe has to scoop that up as it cross knocks off his own defender and heads straight for the goal. Rowe boots it downfield to Boateng, who is inexplicably wide open, unmarked. Crosses it to no one. Sates is there to grab it. 91 minutes, 5 minutes of stoppage time. Again, massive amounts of stoppage time during the beta. I'm sure they're going to fix that. You know, when every game you got 5 or 6 minutes of stoppage time. There was one game earlier in this season. I was so mad. So mad. I fought back for a draw. And the team came and got the game winner like 5 minutes and 54 seconds into overtime. Or into extra time. It was just unbelievable how much extra time you get in this beta, and it's unnecessary. There should not be that much time. I mean, I know we've had a couple of injuries, and you're supposed to get right a minute of stoppage time per injury, or is it 3 minutes of stoppage time per injury? I think it's a minute of stoppage time per injury, and then maximum of 3 minutes, I thought is what it was. But maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Rodriguez with a nice tackle. Somehow we get the ball out of that. Was that another offside? Like, Rodriguez tackled the ball, and it went out of bounds. So I think that was an offside. All right, here's Thompson. 30 seconds left to go. He just sort of drops the ball. Let Ciani get a hold of it. Leonardo again. He's going to be our man of the match with all these interceptions. And, just send it in towards the goal. Get this game over with. Rowe, let's see if you can hold the ball. There it is. There it is. Full time. Mercifully, we end the season on an unbeaten streak. We use a fully rotated side. Get the draw. Keep Los Angeles out of the playoffs. Team talk. Nothing specific to say right now. Let's get out of here. Get out of here. Never want to talk about this game ever again. Except for the fact that we kept Los Angeles out of the playoffs. Go to our inbox here. Honors even at Toyota Stadium. Portland wins the Supporters Shield. Not shocking. Not shocking. A little bit surprising. Consider the precipitous fall by Seattle. Unbelievable. When I did my sort of preseason evaluation of these teams, I looked at Seattle as the top team in MLS. Top team in all of MLS. They had one of the best rosters. They have one of the best organizations. And here they are, finishing 21st overall, winning only 7 games all season long. It seems ridiculous. Let's look at Seattle. How are they looking with their roster? So you look at their roster, they've got Ladero, 4.5-star player. Alonso, Rodriguez, Roldan, Jovan Jones. I mean, they added Gustav Svensson. Clint Dempsey is still there. Marshall, Leardom. All these guys, 3.5, 4.5-star guys. This should be an excellent team. I don't know how they fell so far down the league table. Just ridiculous. And that left room, I suppose, for their bitter rival, Portland. Those two teams have been playing professional soccer against each other, since the 60s or the 70s, like basically the beginnings of soccer, professionally in the West Coast anyway. It's been around the East Coast for quite a bit longer than that. I saw a documentary the other day about Bethlehem Steel, who are currently, I believe, a Division III team, but they were one of the first and best American professional soccer teams back in the early 1900s, 1905, somewhere around there. So we have had soccer in America for a long time, but on the West Coast, Portland and Seattle are the kings out there. And for Seattle to fall so far down and to leave Portland at the top of the division all by themselves. They got to be kicking themselves. Anyway, that's enough history lesson for you. Let's get to our Houston Dynamo secure playoff spot. So now it all comes down to league table, where we finish, who we playing. They're not showing us. They're not. We don't want the full. We don't want the full league table. We want Western Conference. Where's the Western Conference? Where is the Western Conference? All right, they're not showing us. Must respond. I don't want to talk to you about that. I want to see who I'm playing in the wild card round. Yes, FC Dallas draw Minnesota in the wild card round. We can do that. No problem. Wild card. In the East, we have Toronto versus Chicago. That's a bit of a shock to see Toronto in the wild card round. Philadelphia, New York, that's going to be a heck of a game. New York is a pretty good team. Then in the Western Conference, we got FC Dallas versus Minnesota and Houston versus San Jose. So hopefully we'll not have to see Houston again this season. Because if we win, we'll go into the MLS playoffs and we'll have to play Sporting Kansas City. And if they win, they'll have to play against Portland. And so follow that. Naturally, hopefully we would be playing Portland in the final. Western Conference final. Well, Portland's pretty good, so maybe we do want to play Houston. I don't know. At that point, it's a crapshoot anyway. So there you go. There's our next game. We're going to sort of go straight into the playoffs next video and explain all of this MLS playoff nonsense. So there we go. That's going to end it. So until next time, if you like this video, go ahead, give us a like, give us a subscription if you want to see more. I'm doing more and more FM videos, quite frankly, because I'm getting more and more views. Now, maybe that's not going to keep up. Who knows? But as long as I get people watching, I'll make more of these videos. If not, I do them at least on the weekends, Saturday, Sunday. So if you need some Saturday, Sunday Football Manager action, go ahead and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.